This is Midnight Radio, episode 4. I want to talk about some of the things that happened in my neighborhood recently. A couple of months ago, I believe, we had a shooting at the 90th Street station in the Jackson Heights, Corona area. That shooting was in the subway station, brazen in broad daylight. The perpetrator didn't seem to show any regard for his life, his own life, the life of the victim. He didn't seem to care about the ramifications ahead. And he went ahead and he shot the guy in broad daylight, and he was arrested for it. When New Yorkers found out that he had in fact been arrested on violent charges twice in the past, many of them were outraged. I saw an article in the New York Post saying how people like this should have been deported a long time ago. He was illegal. That's probably the biggest kicker here, is that somebody who has no documentation was arrested for multiple violent offenses, and I think he had a couple of DUIs on his record as well. And he was not deported. For what? And this is a very, very immigrant-friendly city. My parents are immigrants. They're good immigrants. They love America. They came to America with high hopes for me, high hopes for a future that we could enjoy. They learned the language. They started working. They work to this day. And they have done a lot for me so that I could prosper here. And that's the goal of immigrants. And there's immigrants all over. I live in New York City. There's immigrants everywhere. I grew up around so many immigrants. I have so many immigrant friends that have either friends that are immigrants or people who have parents that are immigrants growing up in this cross culture. And it's an amazing city to live in. There are a lot of different types of people here. You learn a lot of different things. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But we can't forget that there are criminals. There are criminals in the citizen population. There are criminals in the immigrant population. That has nothing to do with anything except for the fact that there are going to be bad people. Now, in the case of a citizen here or somebody who has permanent residency here, we deal with them in our court system. We bring justice to them in whatever way we can according to the law. We can't really do that when the person doesn't even belong to this country. They should have left at the first sign of major trouble. The first time that person got a DUI and was found to be illegal. Or maybe let's even pretend that that's too harsh. The first time that this person was caught with assault, battery, or charged with evidence of belonging to a gang, which he was part of a gang, and this was a gang hit. The first time any of those signs came up, in my opinion, he should have been removed. A lot of New Yorkers feel the same way. There was a lot of outrage. A lot of outrage. Now, don't get me wrong. I love New York City. It's an amazing place to live. I have one other thing that I've been thinking about recently that has me a little miffed about how things go in a place like New York with such a high population. The population of this city, with including all its 5 boroughs, is about 20 million. It's a lot of people. That is absolutely a lot of people. The 20 million includes the entire metro area. There's just a lot of people living here. Now, the thing is, when you vote, if there are a lot of people, your vote means less. That's just how things work. Now, I'm not talking about the federal elections for president. I'm not talking about even state elections. I mean local elections. I mean that if the base vote feels a certain way about a certain candidate or is incentivized to feel a certain way, then that is the person who is going to come into power. And it doesn't really matter how the minority feels about it because the minority is so small in a sea of people who are thinking a certain way. So in many ways, and even if you, let's say you're voting, basically you have to be on one side, right? In this case, in New York City, you only really get to choose between Democratic primary candidates. You never get to really vote for a Republican. It doesn't, you kind of waste your vote if you vote for a different party. Your vote really counts when you're choosing your primary candidate. And I don't think that's a bad thing per se. I think a like-minded mentality is often good for populations at large, especially diverse ones, where the population is not homogeneous. There's a variety of languages, there's a variety of ideologies, religions. So a unifying political stance, at the very least, keeps the fabric of this city tied together in many ways. So there are pros and cons to that, of course. I'm paying attention to the stock market. That's the other thing on my mind today, probably. I've been looking at the HCA Healthcare stock. This is a for-profit organization that runs many, many medical facilities across the United States and Europe. It's an American company. It was founded in Tennessee. I think they have over 165 hospitals under their control. Quite a few hospitals. A bunch of them in the UK. Bunch of them in the United States. None in like the Northeast. The Northeast is primarily dominated by private players like NYU, Presbyterian, Northwell, and things like that. Mayo Clinic. So as healthcare becomes more important and more prevalent in people's lives, and as the technology gets better and as things start to change, healthcare is going to continue to boom. It's already booming. There are a lot of jobs in the field right now. If you're looking to get employed, healthcare is one of the top fields to get employed in, especially if you're just coming out of college, you have data analysis skills or something like that. Healthcare is absolutely booming. I worked in a healthcare company before the company I was at now as a data analyst, and let me tell you, there's plenty of work to go around. Back to HCA. HCA Healthcare is the largest for-profit hospital provider. Sorry, not provider. They're the largest hospital group in the world right now that's for-profit. So that's pretty big. They run a lot of hospitals and they have a lot of opportunity for growth. I think they're going to be a significant player in the days to come, especially as good healthcare reaches parts of the country and other parts of Europe that haven't had access to it before. The high technology that sometimes is only available in major cities. Recently, the reason this stock actually ended up on my radar at all is because they recently suffered a major 10% drop in one day. I was looking for the biggest losers in the market. And the reason for that is because the market or the investors in the healthcare field are actually worried about Democrats' Medicare for All plan. And because what that would do is drive up the costs for everyone, presumably. It would be an extension of Obamacare, sort of, and that puts for-profit at risk because insurance companies would kind of be bought out by the government and doctors would get paid less and not want to really treat patients. That kind of plan usually ends up with a like a two-tier system because you can't remove the capitalism aspect from America entirely, from the American healthcare system entirely. What that'll end up doing most likely is creating a tier of people who can pay for things in cash and a tier of people who can't, and it'll be second class. It'll be like getting second class health service, and that's probably a bad outcome. And so the market is worried about that. Investors are worried about that, and so some of them, took out a decent share of their stock. But the stock's back up, and things will smooth out and go on. Realistically, it probably took a 5% dip that will even out over the course of the few days. But healthcare is an interesting industry to keep your eye on, for sure. Definitely important. Yeah, and that's it for today. Thanks for watching.